What's going on, man? It's your big brother K-Rino, and we are here again, YouTube edition of K-Rino Radio, man. And tonight we're gonna get down to the meat and potatoes of this educational system and try to bring some light to some of the things that are going on, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and whatever we can find in between, man. I got my brother here. He is an educator. He's a teacher at Royal Junior High School in the city of Houston. And we're going to get into some things that people are curious about. My brother, Mr. Jorge Espinoza, man. What's going on, family?
Oh, man. Happy to be here, bro.
No question, man. I know there's so much going on in the school systems all around, the nation. And I kind of want to get into some of the behind the scenes stuff, because when parents start to send their children to school, we look at that as supposedly look at that as being a safe place that we can send our children while we go out and earn money, but there's so much going on. Let's get some background on you. Tell us how you got into teaching and what developed your drive and passion to want to pursue that field in the first place.
Well, when you first met me, we met probably about 7, 8 years ago, maybe longer than that. I moved to Houston in 2012. I was working at Chase Bank. And then I met you probably a couple of years after that, probably 2013, 2014. And you introduced me to ARC, Artist Respecting Community. And, going out there, doing a lot of the work. And then my wife was working at a private daycare where she was a teacher in there. So just a mixture of, going out, serving the community, and then seeing her, being excited with her kids, all of that put together inspired me to do something more than what I was doing at the bank. So I looked into it, how to get my teacher certification, because I have a bachelor's, and that's the main thing that you need. You need to have a bachelor's degree in order to enter an alternative certification program, and, put in the work, pass my test, and then just started applying for jobs in the summer of 2016.
The crazy thing about it, because I remember when you made that transition over from leaving the bank, and I was asking, like, why you want to change up and switch it up like that, and what developed your passion in terms of saying I can fill a void that exists in the school system, of being able to be the kind of teacher that we were used to coming up with. A teacher seemed to actually care about the students, and it wasn't just a paycheck. What made you leave I'm assuming a lucrative bank job to say, this is what I want to do?
So when I worked at Chase Bank, the last couple of years I was there, I was a private client banker. So I was the one that helped, the affluent customers, what we call them, the people that had a lot of money.
Rich people.
Right. And I got commission based off of whatever money they brought in, whatever their investments are. But I saw the bad side of it, because I started as a regular banker. So I help everyday people. And then when I transitioned into that position at the same branch, so my older customers who didn't have, the $250,000, $500,000, $1 million would still want me to help them. And my manager at the time was saying things like, oh, you can't associate yourself with, trash like that. They're not bringing in the money. Right. And those were her words. I'm not going to sugarcoat it.
Right.
And, that started putting things inside. And at the same time, going out, we were doing things with the homeless. We were doing things with, the youth. And I was like, this has to be something better, something that I could fill the void. And so when I decided to become a teacher, I didn't just want to become a teacher anywhere. Because I grew up in Long Beach, California, lived there my entire life till I got married. And then a couple years after that, moved to Houston. So I grew up in an area, low income, high crime, lots of drugs, lots of gangs. And so when I decided to become a teacher, I wanted to be a teacher in a type of neighborhood that I grew up in. Because I live in Katy right now. But I did not want to become a teacher to teach in Katy. That wasn't my audience.
Right.
So I seeked out schools in the inner city. I know one of the schools that I did get a job offer was your old middle school, Thomas Middle School.
Right.
It's just that their principal went on vacation, paperwork didn't get sent in, so I didn't get everything guaranteed, and I was not gonna have a paycheck anymore. So I was like, I need something guaranteed. So, Drew Academy in Aldine offered me a job at the same time. So, after speaking to the principal, the old principal, not the one that was there now, just his attitude towards wanting to help, our population, is what, convinced me to be like, you know what, thank you for that offer over here, but he sold me on being there.
Right.
And so that's I wanted to make a difference to our people.
So getting inside the school, being your first time ever even trying this, I remember the couple of times that I visited the school when y'all have events and y'all invited us out. I can remember how the students gravitated towards you. All of the students liked you. They, you were really one of the favorite teachers that they had. But we know that that's a rarity in the school system, where, because like I said earlier, to some of these people, it's just a paycheck. What did you see once you got on the inside in terms of individuals, and even individuals who were working at the top, that didn't view this career the way you viewed it? When was your first taste of that, and how did you navigate through that?
Well, my first impression when I got there, I was like, well, these kids just need somebody to care for them.
Yeah.
They need somebody sincere.
Right.
So I approached it as, I'm gonna get to know every single one of them. See where we can relate. For the most part, a lot of teachers were there for the kids, but you always have teachers who are just there. My old principal used to put it this way: we're on a bus, but with no engine. We're the feet, and there's some that are running with this bus, and then there's those who are dragging their feet or barely walking on the bus that is holding everybody behind. So we did have those teachers. Never stayed after school for anything, never sponsored any clubs, any programs. But I just went in there and just did me. I just needed, I'm not gonna worry about, what this teacher or so teacher is doing. And the kids will tell me all the time, oh, Miss So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so, they don't care. Or they do this and do that, and so the kids will tell you who those teachers were. But I was like, look, I'm gonna focus on me and make sure I do what's right for these kids.
And just on that note, because children, they pick up on everything. They don't miss anything. And I know that these other teachers who may not be in it and invested in it for the sake of the children, they're not thinking about the ramifications of that, in terms of that, look, you playing with somebody's life.
Yep.
This child may make a decision to keep going further or to go left in life based on what they didn't receive from somebody who should have been mentally nurturing them and nourishing them. So that's really a dangerous game to play. One of the things that I know that you really was pushing on and focused on at that time when you were getting down in the school was the proper teaching of history, making sure that children were receiving the truth, as opposed to just what was in the curriculum or what they told you to teach. How were you able to get that truth injected in that classroom while having that cloud over your head that they want you to follow this lesson plan and continue to push the crap that they've been teaching everybody for years?
So my first 2 years teaching there, I was teaching science. Science was the easiest position to get a job at because every school needed a science teacher or math teacher.
Okay.
I always wanted to teach history, But I said, let me get my foot in the door first. Let me secure this paycheck. And I don't want to say it like that, just a paycheck, but I had already put in my resignation at the bank.
Yeah.
So I needed to, find a position.
That's right.
And so 2 years in, the history teachers left, and my principal approached me, and he's been to the ARC meetings before. That's how I got Dr. Abdul and OG1 to come to the school. So he knew, what I was about, and we've talked. So when he approached me, we had a discussion. I told him, there's only one way I'm gonna teach it. He said, that's why I asked you.
Right.
And I bounced with it back and forth. Do I want to do this? Do I not? And I asked them final question, what is in the best interest of the kids, for me to switch from science to history or to stay in science? And he said, it's for you to switch to history.
Yeah.
So that was it. As soon as he said that's the best interest for the kids, we did it. And I never really felt that I had a cloud over my head from my principal.
Right.
Even my skills specialist, who she's in charge of the history department, I never really felt that a cloud over my head there, which is why I couldn't teach in like a KD ISD or a Sci-Fair ISD. There, I would have had a whole hurricane on top of my head. And the question was, at the end of the day, they want to know what you do with these STAR scores, the STAR test.
Right.
How are those scores? They could love you all day, every day. They could praise you up and down, but if these STAR scores don't match, then forget what you're teaching. So first year there, at the end of the year, we got STAR scores. And then when those results came in, my principal came up to me and said, Mr. Espinoza, Drew Academy has never seen U.S. history STAR scores like these.
Wow.
So, okay, so can you teach? They give you a guideline of what to teach. You have to cover this, this, and this. And they barely give you enough time to cover this, this, and this. Can you insert stuff that is not going to be on the test and still get them prepared for the test? And the answer was yes.
Right. It's strong, man. So let me ask you this. So you teaching, just to keep it 1,000, you teaching in the hood.
Right.
You teaching young Black and Latino children who people have already written off, and even unfortunately, some of the parents have written off their own children. What was your key to motivating those students and bringing out what was in them, the positive and the good that's in them, to make them want to come to school and want to learn? Because that's not a skill that not just teachers, that many people don't have that skill. So what was your thing that you use or that you recognize that allowed you to say, man, I can motivate these children, man, wake them up, turn that light on in their head?
The first thing is building that relationship. There's a educator, she passed away, and I wish I can remember her name off the top of my head. But if you're a teacher watching this, you know who I'm talking about. You've seen the video. But she says something that stuck with me. If the kids don't like you, they're not going to learn from you. I don't care how great of a lesson, how interactive, how anything. If they don't like you, they're not going to learn from you. So that was the foundation, is building that relationship. You go to their basketball games. They play sports, you go to their basketball games. They're in dance, you go to their recitals.
Right.
And food. You bring them food. You create a reward system. Plus, my classroom, I always have music playing. It's the little things. I always have music playing in the hallway between class periods. A lot of it is your music that I play in the hallways. Birthdays, littlest things like birthdays. I have a PowerPoint presentation every day when I come home, when I'm setting up my lesson for the next day, I look at my roster, I look at see whose birthday is their birthday coming up tomorrow. If there is, I put their name. It's a template that I already built. I put their name on it. So the next day, I put up on the big screen for everybody to see. And not everybody likes to be celebrated like that. So you ask them first. Do you want to sing happy birthday? Yes, no, yes. Then we all sing as a class. No, okay, well, happy birthday. And then you keep it going. And then the other thing that I found is name pronunciation. If you get their name correct, there's a lot of names that are, growing up, my first name is actually pronounced Jorge.
Right.
But all my teachers, none of my teachers could ever get it correct. They would butcher it. Jorge, Jorge. So, eventually the way it ended up being George is one of my childhood friends, just kept seeing me getting frustrated, trying to explain. He just said, look, just make it easy for you, make it easy for everybody. Just say George.
George, yeah.
So it's been George since like seventh or eighth grade.
Right.
So, we get our rosters for the following year, usually around the middle of July. So I always look for that roster and I practice it.
Right.
I practice everybody's name. I ask my wife, how would you pronounce this? Yeah. And so the reaction that I get a lot, and surprising, is I get kids like, you're the first teacher to ever say my name. You're the first person to ever say my name right. And it's the little things, the name, the birthdays, the attending their extracurricular activities, right. Calling home, the first couple of weeks of school, I call home, introducing myself to the parents, telling them how excited I am to be their teacher. And I always try to make my first phone call home to be a positive one, even if their kid was tearing up the classroom.
Right.
I'll let them know the next time I call them, not the first time. And so, it's a lot of little things. So with that, you get more parent involvement. And it shows too, because whenever we have open house, we always have a sign-in sheet. I always end up having like 5, 6, 7 pages filled. Right. While teachers that have the same students, right. Have like 1 or 2. So it's the little things.
Yeah, that's a good point, because that's a carryover into just life in general. But everything you're saying, to me, it just represents almost like stepping into a gap and filling a void, almost like a parental void in the absence of the parents. And that 8 hours that they're at this facility, at this school, rather, then they are still under the guidance of somebody who gives them more of a parental type of care, and maybe a parental type of care that they're not even getting at home, which right. is really helpful. You spoke about the parents also. What kind of parent-teacher relationships did you have? For the most part, were they positive, or I know you run into some, negative situations, but what do you think is the important thing to cultivate great relationships between teachers and the parents?
Mm-hmm. So the parents with the bad kids, they know their kids are bad. Mm-hmm. And they get tired of people of the school calling and telling them that their kid is bad. Right. So those are the ones that I approach first with the good phone calls. Mm-hmm. And then parent communication. I use different apps to communicate with parents. There's Remind, and then there's I hated using this one. I can't even remember the name anymore, but Remind is probably the best, because you put all the students' name, all the parents' emails and phone numbers. And I always, would send out a quick notification. Hey, today we did this in class, tomorrow we're doing this. We have this event coming up. And then I always kept my communication open with parents. They get my email, my school email, or they get, access through that, through Remind. And I always tell the parents, if I'm awake, I'm gonna respond. I respond to, and a lot of teachers don't like to do this, and obviously they don't have to, because they're not technically on the clock. But I always tell the students could communicate with me through, well, at least in Aldine, I don't know what we're going to use at Royal, but through the work app that we use called Schoology, they could send messages through a teachers through there. And I was telling them, if I'm awake, I'm going to respond.
Right, right.
And, I would respond to parents Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whatever the time. There were times that I would get up in the middle of the night. I saw a parent email that got sent out at midnight.
Right.
And I would open it up and respond. And they're like, oh, wow, I didn't think you were going to respond till the next day. And again, the little things, and it doesn't take much time out of your day.
Right.
We stare at our phones, more than we stare, at our significant other sometimes.
Doing a bunch of nonsense. Yeah. No, that's big. And that's why I asked that question, because I think it's a three-way relationship. It's not just parent-student. I mean, not just teacher-student, not just parent student and teacher-parent. It's everybody got to be on as much of the same page as possible in order to reach the goal of advancing that student, which is the main thing. I'm gonna take it up a little higher real quick, in terms of like the schools in the inner cities are notoriously known for not getting a lot of the resources that some of the other schools get, and just being basically neglected. And when the results of, like you say, tests and performance and graduation rate and dropout rate, all that is reflective a lot of times in the negligence of the system to funnel in resources. Did you see any of that? And is that something that you try to bring attention to, or frustrated with, or what's your take on that whole thing?
Yeah, definitely. So we're what's considered Title I. Title I is low income, so it's special funding. But in order to get that funding, you need to, go through a million hoops just to get something. There's the broken window theory. If you walk through a neighborhood and you see broken windows,
Right.
Your first assumption is going to be, oh, crime, poverty.
Mm.
So your mindset gets in, you get into that mindset of, oh, this is a dangerous neighborhood, I shouldn't be here.
Right.
When you go to a school and there's stuff that is very outdated, or you have, bars on the windows, your mindset, goes like, well, this is not a very good school,
Right.
Especially if you drive by some of these other schools that look like castles, pretty much from the outside.
Right.
So you do see a lot of that in the inner city schools.
And that plays on the minds of the students as well, because to your point, a lot of these schools, they run them almost like prisons. They kind of set that whole atmosphere up, like when they say they get bars and just some of the rules and regulations and how it's set up. It's almost a replication of a prison type of setup. And people don't understand how subconsciously that affects a child, how that plays into that moving into the future, man. What do you think needs to be done? Because this is another thing I gotta ask. When you talk about we see what happened in Uvalde the other day.
Right.
When you see stuff like that and knowing that that's what you do for a living, what goes through your mind in terms of visualizing your school and you and other children being in that situation, man? What was your thoughts on that?
Well, first and foremost, I'm a God-fearing man. So how do I say this? I'm not gonna say I'm not. I don't think about it, because I think about every day that I'm at school. I think about a situation like this, every class period. But I don't go to school in fear because of that.
Right.
Everywhere I go, because we've been in situations, you and I, where something like that happens.
Yeah.
And so you got to be vigilant everywhere. Saying that, what happened in Uvalde was a lot of negligence as far as on the police side, a lot of negligence. Almost like they wanted it to happen the way, the way it did. At our school, we have a lot of ways for people to enter. Okay. We have a lot of ways for people to enter. The doors are glass. They could easily be shattered. They could be locked all day, every day. And they are. But they're trying to pin it on us and the school itself. I believe, let me regather my thoughts. So in Uvalde, I believe a lot of the information that is out there, there's still a lot of stuff that they're hiding. So we can't really say exactly how the school responded because they're trying to hide a lot of the stuff to protect the police officers. But we've had lockouts at my school. It was my second year teaching. It ended up being a false report, but a student reported that they saw a student with a gun.
Right.
So when they reported to the principal, he immediately got on the radio, said, "We're on lockdown." So we're trained and we practice a lockdown drill.
Right.
My students are supposed to go to a certain location in the classroom where they're not visible from the doors. My responsibility is I take a quick peek in the hallway. If there's any kids, unable to get into a classroom, bring the kids into the classroom, lock the door, turn off all the lights, and we stay quiet.
Right.
I always position myself by the door. I grab whatever object I can. Usually it's a pair of scissors, and I stand by the door. If anybody were to come in, I'm the first person that they're going to encounter.
Right.
Because my job there is to make sure that these kids are safe. While they're in my care, they're going to be safe.
What kind of security? See, because I'm all about preventative measures. It's like if you've been to the mosque and it's a straight up check procedure, search procedure, like going to certain clubs, and like, look, we're gonna pat you down, metal detectors. What do you think about things like that? Even though some lunatics show up, he it's still gonna be somebody that he get, but you gotta set it up to where he won't be able to get all the way in and get deep up in there and do that kind of damage. Are you in favor of like this extreme security measures, or just even metal detectors or things of that? Because the police in Uvalde, just to say it, them cats were scared. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't so much, well, we following procedure. No, they were scared. They scared of one 18-year-old gunman, and they got all this arm and stuff on like that. But are you in favor of like metal detector? Y'all have all that, or?
Well, we did have metal detectors. And we have two entry points in the morning, one in the front of school. So those are people that get dropped off by the parents. Then there are people that go ride the bus. They enter a different way. They go through metal detectors. You have teachers there who have the duty to go through the backpacks. And they were not allowed to wear solid backpacks. They had to wear mesh or clear plastic backpacks. Right. So we had those measures. Where the problem sometimes lies in is we have so many kids coming in at the same time, and we only have two people. And then a lot of times the teacher who's on duty doesn't show up on time. So you have one person. So the person's trying to get all the kids in because they still have to eat breakfast and get to class, that they just, go through the motions without going. Because fortunately, we never had an actual situation where it got dangerous.
And is there security at the schools? Or like, and I don't mean like because at some of the schools in the hood, they got law enforcement that are in there basically bullying and pushing the children around. You know what I'm saying? They like say that whole penitentiary type vibe. Yeah. Is that some kind of security there that like just we here to secure and we not making the children feel threatened either?
So we have Aldine has his own police department. And we do have not security guard, we have actual police officer in the school, but they're not allowed to engage with the students. Even if there's a fight, they're not there for disciplinary.
Gotcha.
And that changed. I think that changed after there were so many incidents with police officers in the schools bullying the kids
Yeah,
and you know
yeah, all that old.
and all that. So I know some things changed as far as that, because sometimes we had a fight, and some of the teachers were upset because the officer was right there. She wasn't doing anything. Like, well, she's not. We can't have it both ways.
Yeah.
We can't have it both ways, and I'm cool with that. I'm cool with having the police officer there strictly for the safety of the school, not for discipline, not for stuff that we're supposed to handle.
Yeah. See, because another thing too is that that's why a lot of talk about homeschooling and things of that nature is starting to become more prevalent, because parents are scared to death, rightfully so, of these types of incidents, man. And it's a shame that I ain't saying, I'm just preaching to the choir, like we live in that kind of society now, where somebody can just sit at home in a quiet place and decide, all right, today is the day that I'm gonna go ahead and take out my whatever my madness is on people who have nothing to do with that. And it's a fine line, because the with security, like we spoke about, that kind of bully security, it only contributes to that whole concept, that the school to prison pipeline concept, and getting our children adjusted to seeing officers and all that type of thing, man, enforcing on them, man. So that got to be a tough thing to balance. I know as an educator, that can be a tough thing to balance as well, man. Let me ask you a couple of questions before we get you out of here, my brother. Like we was talking about the bank earlier. It was funny when you mentioned the part about the person saying, why you dealing with them? They peons and all that. That's a reflection of how the so-called elite class in society, they view people on our scale, like in the schools as well. That's why we see, in my opinion, a lot of these low-income schools in these neighborhoods not receive the love that they should get, man. So I definitely commend you and others like you who put yourself on the front lines like that and say, man, I'm doing this. Of course, I'm making a living, but I'm doing this to make an impact on a child. Because one thing that I'm gonna say, bro, and you've encountered this, and you will at some point, you run into those students that you taught, man, and nurtured, and when they get older and become grown men and women, you run into them, man, they never forget who the good ones were. So I definitely commend you, fam, for real, man.
I was just last weekend, one of my first set of students. So this year, my first set of students, when I first started teaching, graduated from high school. And I went to their graduation. It was my first graduation. And when they come out after the ceremony and we're outside, and I had my daughter with me, and you just had all these kids just yelling my name, Mr. Espinoza, you made it. And then I was invited by one of my parents to the graduation party this last Saturday. And I felt like I was one of the family, just being there. And my student, her name is Leah. She was telling our family, he's the reason why I'm going into this medical program in college next year. He was my favorite teacher, this and this. And, it's those little things. And today, today's my birthday. And I've gotten probably close to 100 messages from former students, wishing happy birthday. And it's just, those are the things that, that make it worth it.
That's the impact, bro, because we had the ability to send a child left or right. And if you send them in the wrong direction, they'll remember who contributed to that. And if you send them in the right direction, they'll remember who contributed to that as well, man. I sure appreciate you coming on, my brother, and keep doing what you're doing, because you are a rare commodity, man, in this world, man. Somebody that actually gives a you know what, and anything you need from me, I ain't but a phone call away, family. And we're gonna keep it moving and keep this brother's in the community, boots on the ground. He ain't just sitting behind some desk just talking it. He actually out there walking it. So, commend to my brother Jorge Espinoza. Keep doing what you're doing, man. you know it ain't nothing but love, brother.
Yeah, you're gonna have to make it out to Brookshire now.
Hey, let's do it. Let's do it. I'll tell you, one of the first rap shows I ever did was in Brookshire, so might as well,
Oh man,
might as well
so you
go
got that.
on a different
You know
note.
how to get there.
Oh yeah, yeah, we passed through
It's
all
only
the time, man. Yeah,
it's only about 15, 20 minutes past my house.
yeah, it ain't nowhere from me either, man. So okay, well that's what it is, my brother. You know, hit me up, man, and y'all be sure to support my brother, and y'all will see him again, no question about it. Because anything,
And real quick, Kay, let me just say, my wife has been my biggest supporter in all of this. My wife and my aunt, you met her once. She lives in Mexico. From day one, those two have been behind me in all of this. My parents probably gonna get mad when they listen to this, but they thought I was crazy when I decided to become a teacher. Because I was making almost 6 figures as a banker, and then went to like 50. So my dad thought I was crazy. My mom was a teacher in Mexico, and she wanted to be a teacher her whole life. And she went to school for it and was a teacher in Mexico for almost 10 years. And, her mind was like, how do you just take a test and become a teacher? So, I love them, but my biggest supporters were my wife and my aunt from day one.
Right.
So
sometimes, people don't, Fresh Prince said parents just don't understand. Sometimes they understand, but it's a lot of it because of just concern. They just like,
And I think that's where it was. But now that I'm teaching, my parents always send stuff like, hey, here's $100. Here's for, go get some backpacks for the kids.
Right.
Here's this. So, they do. I'm not saying they don't support now. At the beginning, they were skeptical.
No, they have to see that you know what you're doing. And then when they see that you know what you're doing and the impact that it's making, then they say, okay, all right, let's jump on board, man. But it's all love, man. You got a great family. You always doing your thing, brother. So, keep it up, man. You know what time it is.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Salute.
Right, real quick, the shirt.
What did it say? Raise up the necklace. Oh, I got you. There it is. See, exactly. You know what I'm saying? Them snakes and them clowns, they don't want no truth to be spoken. So, but that ain't gonna stop us because we underground all the way down. Yes, sir. So salute, George. You know what it is, my brother.
Yes, sir.
Peace.